always been interested in Blink-182, Mark Hoppus, Tom DeLonge, and Travis Barker. So I was thrilled to see that Mark Hoppus wrote this memoir that came out of April of this year. I just finished reading it, and it is certainly explicit to anybody who's wondering, so it's not an endorsement of the family friendliness of this material. But I've just always been interested in Blink-182. I would say they in some sense planted the seeds for me to come to Christ. The faith of Tom's mother has always come through his lyrics. So you'll hear him often mention Jesus, like in Anthem Part 2, where he says, "Help me, Jesus." So maybe those were the seeds of my coming to faith. I loved the rawness of this book, where Mark essentially traces his childhood all the way up to his most recent years through his battle with cancer. And it was just very helpful to see from his perspective how things were going as somebody who watched them succeed over the last 25 years, who they had a big impact on me. Probably what was sad about this book to me was both Tom and Mark's battle with transcendence. Tom, you could see, mistook his ability to achieve transcendence through his frustration with Blink that led him to Boxcar Racer and ultimately Angels and Airwaves. He spoke of it changing the world, and of course it was great material, but never had the impact that he thought it did. But part of this story is Mark's dealing with his own fears and OCD, and he attributes it to the early divorce of his parents, the death of friends and acquaintances, the divisions in his band, ultimately to his battle with cancer. Throughout the book, he reasons, hey, I've hit the jackpot 1 in a million, going from being really poor to this incredibly wealthy celebrity. What would stop me from hitting the jackpot of death or disease or all these things? And sure enough, he gets cancer, which only multiplies his fears. So whereas Tom mistakes himself as being able to achieve transcendence, Mark is looking for something to anchor him without transcendence. In other words, Mark's life is really the story of Ecclesiastes. But the difference between the wisdom of Ecclesiastes and Mark is that Mark only ever remains under the sun, among imminent things. In other words, the book begins and ends in the same place. He starts by expressing his frustration in his family falling apart. And by the end of the book, it tries to end on a happy note, but he just ends up in the same place. My friends and family are ultimately what I can rely upon. Not recognizing that he's mistaken what essentially let him down in the beginning for what will now be dependable in the end. And the wisdom of Ecclesiastes reminds us is that's not